Data. It's simply more bundled together. 51 gigabytes for 7 days for only $2,000. Live the experience with Digicel. Activate today on the My Digicel app.
This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Hello, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio for Monday, January 25th, 2021. I am Kevin Smith, and these are the top stories we're tracking. EPA demands no studies for 5 projects dealing with hazardous oil and gas chemicals. Agency lacks capacity to do testing. Coalition MP collected $5.7 million for construction of pig pen using unregistered association. Meanwhile, government has to receive 2020 Liza 1 operating costs from ExxonMobil, has 2 years to audit, and fishermen can be frontline of monitoring effects of oil operations, says Dr. Janet Bulkin. Stay tuned to stay informed.
Weak systems of governance and the absence of the rule of law both combine to form the perfect stage for corruption to flourish. As part of our anti-corruption fight at Kaieteur Radio, we invite you to join us every Tuesday evening from 7:30 p.m. as we embark on a most needed quest to remove the tentacles of corruption from our systems. See you then for our latest program called Governance, Corruption and Justice.
And now for the news in detail, an environmental impact assessment can be defined as a critical tool used to identify the environmental, social and economic impacts of a project, whether it may be for the construction of a plant or warehouse for industrial or chemical purposes. Once completed, the document, which comprises the risks the project would pose to the environment, would be assessed for approval by the relevant authorities. In spite of the importance of this critical report, Guyana's EPA has been taking a position of not requiring EIAs for at least 5 projects dealing directly with a slew of hazardous chemicals used in the petroleum sector. Not only is the move alarming to most industry advocates, but equally concerning is the fact that the agency, which is meant to be Guyana's environmental watchdog, severely lacks the capacity to monitor the influx of chemicals set to increase as the sector expands. In other news, it has been revealed that the APNU-AFC MP, Jermaine Figuera, collected $5.7 million to construct and extend pig pens in Linden, and the corporation he received the funds under has never been officially registered. This was disclosed by the Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton. According to Hamilton, Figuera's corporation, the Green Jaguar Environmental and Community Development Cooperative Society, was handed the funds in 2019 to construct the pig pens, which is a part of a pig rearing project for the Wisrock community in Linden. It is of many community projects funded under the SLED program in 2019, which are allocated to groups and particular individuals for execution. The groups receiving projects are required to be registered as cooperative societies before funds are released to them. But Figuera's corporation was never officially registered. On Saturday, via a Facebook post, Figuera responded to Hamilton's disclosures, where he called them wild, irresponsible, and callous. And moving on, with over $6 billion in unaudited bills from ExxonMobil, the company's local subsidiary, Esso, is set to hand Guyana yet another one by the end of the first quarter of this year. The new bill will account for the operating costs ExxonMobil footed for the year 2020 to run the Liza Phase 1 development. The deadline for the submission of these costs is set out by the Payara production license. And now let's tell you, University of British Columbia Professor Dr. Janet Balkan recently posited that Guyana's fishermen can be the front line in the monitoring of the country's inshore waters, especially in reporting the effects of the oil operations on marine life. Dr. Balkan reminded that regular seagoing fishermen would possess the knowledge to report change in inshore waters. According to Dr. Balkan, these changes could include observing oily sheen in the water tops, unusual numbers of concentration of dead fish, the temperature change of the water, and even the smell of the air. You are tuned into Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is your news at noon. Coming up after the break, female guard dodges cutlass to escape bandits. Dr. Adams says Guyana urgently needs oil and gas monitoring unit. Man survives 3 bullets in an execution attempt, and Venezuelan Navy detains Guyanese fishing vessels. Meanwhile, detector operator shot in legs by drunk man. Do stay tuned.
A lot has happened since oil was discovered in 2015. The petroleum industry is an ever-changing web of oil, gas, politics, and money. It gets complicated sometimes, but we can bring you all the latest developments and include you in the discussions here on Kaieteur Radio. So tune in to 99.1 or 99.5 FM every Tuesday night at 20 hours for Petroleum 101 with me, your host, Kamal King. Kaieteur Radio, the radio with a difference.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. A female security guard is counting her blessings after she was able to dodge a cutlass-wielding bandit and escape to safety on Tuesday morning, last while on her way to work. The lucky woman has been identified as Colleen Joseph of Enterprise East Coast Demerara. Joseph is a security guard attached to Delta Security Service. It is understood that Joseph was stationed at a work site on the east coast of Demerara, but was recently moved to work in Georgetown. In other news, it is critical for Guyana, a novel oil-producing nation, to have adequate capacity to monitor the exploration, development, and production oil by ExxonMobil. This is to ensure what is submitted by the company on paper is an accurate reflection of what is taking place on the rig. As such, Dr. Vincent Adams, who holds a PhD in environmental engineering, underscored the urgent need for the governing PPPC to staff the petroleum unit at the EPA. And now let's tell you, a 22-year-old laborer was yesterday survived 3 bullets in an execution attempt at Barbie Dam, East La Penitence in Georgetown. Osafa Johnson, a resident of East La Penitence, was reportedly shot around 4:45 by 4 gunmen. According to police, Johnson and his common-law wife were at the time making their way home from a party held at Tower Hotel. The car was driven by an acquaintance of Johnson who was about to drop them off at Barbie Dam when 2 other cars drove up from behind and blocked the path. 4 men stepped out of the car and called Johnson by his name. Johnson then grabbed his spouse by her hand, exited the car they were in, and ran. Investigators were told that the men opened fire behind them and Johnson fell. The men then re-entered their cars and sped off. In other news, a detector operator, 24 years old, was on Thursday last shot to his legs, reportedly by a drunk man at 5-Star Landing in the Northwest District. The man, who has since been identified as Satish Ramnarayan of Monrepo, East Coast of Marara, was shot sometime after 16 hours 30 with a shotgun. Investigators were told that an intoxicated man had entered the building where Ramnarayan resided and confronted him in his kitchen. The detector operator was cooking at the time, and a brief argument ensued between the two. The man left shortly after but returned 5 minutes later armed with a shotgun. Ramnarayan was at the time standing in the front of the building when his friend alerted him to run. The drunk man, however, took aim and fired a shot. Efforts are being made to apprehend the shooter. And finally, let's tell you, 2 Guyanese fishing vessels, along with its respective crews, are currently detained on Venezuelan soil. The vessels, Lady Nayera and the Sea Wolf, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, were intercepted on Thursday last by the Venezuelan Navy vessel, Comandante Hugo Chavez, GC-24. The vessels were at the time operating in Guyana's waters just off the coast of at Winey Point. In a release sent out by the ministry, it is stated that captains were instructed by the Venezuelan armed force to navigate their way to Port Guerra, where they are being held. The ministry added that it is currently seeking to ascertain the status and welfare of the Guyanese crew members. In fact, Guyana has called on the Venezuelan government to release them immediately. It is now 12 hours 10. Coming up next is your COVID-19 update.
This is GHK Lal, inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Now for your COVID-19 update. According to Worldometer, the number of worldwide coronavirus cases has reached 99.8 million, with 2.1 million deaths and 71.8 million recoveries. The Ministry of Health reported 2 new COVID-19 fatalities yesterday, a 78-year-old male from Region 6 and a 60-year-old male from Region 4. According to their press release, both persons died while receiving treatment at a medical facility. The COVID-19 death toll now stands at 172. They also reported 76 new infections via their daily dashboard update yesterday, which increases the country's COVID-19 case toll to 7,298. The dashboard also shows that 7 patients are in the COVID-19 ICU, 713 in home isolation, 36 in institutional isolation, and 13 in institutional quarantine. Additionally, a total of 6,370 persons have recovered from the virus, with 9 new recoveries recorded yesterday. And coming from CNN, the UK infection rate is still too high to consider lifting the national lockdown, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Friday. The US can and should vaccinate up to 85% of adults by the end of summer, said Dr. Anthony Fauci. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is reviewing new data that suggests coronavirus variant identified in UK could be more deadly. And Japan has denied a report the Tokyo Olympics would be cancelled. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I am Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums.